Thanks, Leandro. I'm Robert Masolele from Wagner University, and I'm so excited to present this topic here today with everyone on high-resolution global maps of cocoa farm extent. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the contributors to this work. This work has been getting a lot of contributions, of course, data, especially related to cocoa, as you know, it's so challenging as of now to have data, especially reference data related to cocoa. Just before I start, I would like to get the feel of the audience here. I'll have like 2 or 3 questions, and please just raise your hand. How many people have used product containing cocoa or chocolate, for example, eating? Yeah, just to get a feel. How many? Okay. And how many have seen a cocoa plant? I really like. Okay, not bad. Good. Yeah, I just wanted to get an understanding of the audience I'm talking to. Yeah, so cocoa is a very crucial industry. It's a big industry, and it has a very big contribution to a lot of farmers, especially across the pantropics, and also for countries. And it supports millions of farmers. But the issue is that as opposed to other commodities like soy, for example, or oil palm, where you can find a lot of data and information available. Cocoa is so challenging to have this data, especially now where there is a lot of push to sustainability efforts that farmers need to be known, they need to be information where this farming is taking place. But if you don't have data, that's a very big challenges. So, and if you look for cocoa in terms of data, be remote sensing or even for the field data from the farmers, they are rarely available. And the issue is that it's so complex to the farming system which is happening for the cocoa farmers is really heterogeneous and they're complex. So you have like different systems of farming. And now with the push for UDR, so these sustainability regulations, where that, of course, especially for the EU, that in order to import cocoa, companies need to prove that this product is not related to deforestation. That brings also another challenge because, of course, how can you prove if there is barely a lot of information to support this? So as of current, of course, most of the data, they are like export or import data. So you can see we have like data mostly from statistics. And as you can see from this map, most of the cocoa are being from Africa. So especially like the 2 countries, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. But this just gives us an idea, of course, yeah, where we have an import of certain of this crop, but it doesn't really give us information of exactly where farmers are located, at which part of the country. Even if you go to Cote d'Ivoire, is it like the entire country, or where does this farming take place? So just to give you, like, for example, in Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, there's a lot of studies which has been done. As you can see, also maps, a lot of publication has been done around those places. But it's mostly found around at least these 2 countries, because of course there is a reason, because they contribute a lot to cocoa export globally. So last year we published this paper where we mapped related to deforestation, so the land use that follows after deforestation. Of course, cocoa is one of the commodity which was mapped, and we got a lot of feedback, of course, and of course our interest grew in terms of to try to extend this, upscale this to global scale, and of course with a focus on cocoa mapping. One of the challenges is that cocoa is so complex. As I said, it's as opposed to other crops or commodities, you have different typologies. So, for example, you have monocrop but also for agroforestry systems. And also in agroforestry systems, you also different shades of agroforestry systems. So that makes it a bit complex to be able to detect it. Of course, there are many solutions when working on this problem. We try to solve this issue, but we ended up combining several data sets and, of course, training strategies. And one, of course, of the issue, of course, we had like location. What we understood is that the farming system normally varies from location. So the geography is an important factor in this aspect. So just to take an example, this is Brazil, where you have like the most common places where you have cocoa farming, and where it's Pará and Bahia. So if you go, for example, to Pará, uh, most of the farming, you have like monocrop cocoa farming is the main farming system which is taking place around those area. But if you go to Bahia, you find that as those areas, mostly because you have old growth cocoa farming system, is mostly agroforestry. So you can use really geography to try to help in terms of trying to identify this. Although it's kind of complex, but then like difference in farming system across geographies can help in this aspect. So that was really interesting, and we had to include in our mapping effort. So this is a training data. So as you can see, the one inside in color is locations where we have cocoa data and also other crops. And we use this because it's really important, because sometimes in some areas there is a very uh, small difference between certain crops. So like, for example, in West Africa, you have a mix of different commodities like oil palm, rubber, cocoa, and also coffee. So it's really important to have all kind of commodities represented during the training process. So for the training, we use, as you can see, this figure kind of a very complex process. So we have reference data. So an active learning process where you try to train a model iteratively over time, and we had an input data uh, for the model, 3 types of data sets. So we have optical data, Sentinel-2, Sentinel-1, and location information, which have XYZ info, or like latitude, longitude, and altitudes. And these are divided into 3 branches, basically of CNN, where each branch contributes differently. And this is important because in a way that the model can be able to combine each information and give importance to the data, which is really critical on certain locations. So for example, here, you can see that we have latitude and longitude and location. You can just take this branch and basically use it to predict the suitability of cocoa being located on a certain location. And if you add, for example, texture, then it can also give you more information and also the optical information. So we're able to do that. And of course, we had an F1 score. This is a model assessment purely for around 86. And once we were certified, we went ahead and produced a cocoa map across. And we were able to, so this basically, of course, the probability maps. You can see we had an accurate producer accuracy around 91, and there's a user's accuracy of around 88. So just to zoom in, so here I can just zoom to specific locations. So this is, for example, in these 2 countries, which are the main producer for cocoa. You can see that our model is able really to identify these cocoa farms. So you can see this landscape I selected because it's very confusing. So it has like almost 5 types of commodities planted along these locations, and our model is able really to detect cocoa and separate it from other commodities. Similarly, so if you go, like, for example, this is Colombia, where you have like a mix of these large scale cocoa farms, but also small scale, which are monocrop, but also agroforestry systems. So this, just to mention, this is work is in progress. So because we are going further, not only identify where is cocoa and non-cocoa, but also we are trying to identify where is a monocrop, there is cocoa, but if it's a monocrop or if it's agroforestry. But today I'm just showing the general picture. We also see, for example, in Arauca, which is this part of Colombia, where you can see like there is a forest on your right side, and this gives you a picture of the risk that is posed to that forest for cocoa. Of course, this place it has both like cocoa and pasture, but this kind of give you a feel, and this give you how important it is to be able to identify what is happening around this place. Another issue I would like to here to emphasize. So, for example, on A, you see like there is these large-scale cocoa farms, and this is Ecuador. And normally, we know that the cocoa farms takes place in humid forest. That's the knowledge we have. But now, because of the technology, a lot of irrigation is happening. Cocoa farms are being established in dry forest. And one of the challenge, of course, is that most of the like deforestation data we have, they really work well in humid forests, tropical forests, and not so much in dry forest. So if there is a leakage effect, meaning that people are able to go to dry forests, then we'll be missing. We'll be thinking that we are protecting, but that has just moved from another forest type. So here in D, for example, you can see we have this is a forest in Peru. You can see this is a newly established farm. They are very small scale cocoa farms, which are now moving into the forest. And these are very new, like the year 2022, 2023. So just to zoom in more here, just to show an example of, we also use like street view image to try to understand what is happening. Here you can see really like this large scale cocoa farms being established. This is in Ecuador, also in Australia. So we're also able to detect, I mean, very few cocoa farm in Australia. That's also a landscape where not so much is known about cocoa, but we try to introduce, okay, there is something happening like cocoa in Australia. And also in Indonesia. So one interesting part here is this is one part is in Sumatra and Sulawesi. So the difference here, you can see, for example, there is this the same country, but different typologies of cocoa happening. So in Sumatra, you have kind of cocoa, which is very dense, agroforestry systems with oil palm, which is different from Sulawesi. It's kind of more of a scattered. So this is also very useful knowledge to have, and especially if you are doing this mapping exercise, to try to understand the typologies and the landscape where cocoa is taking place. Just to finalize, this data is really useful. So we are trying to produce this data specifically for these regressions. So for example, before 2020, where there is a lot of issue related to the forest type. So normally when you have like, okay, the forest data, where is forest, or the confusion between forest and these commodity crops. So sometimes you find, okay, you have natural forest predicted in places of this commodity crop. But if you have this type of data before, you can easily be able to mask, and it can really reduce the task of identifying where you have a natural forest or not. And specifically now, I mean, most also the data set, you can find this mostly also on humid forests, and it misses, again, that point of dry forest. So if you are able to identify all these type of commodities, and on top, you try to map where is natural forest, it really helps to reduce uncertainties which are related to the data we have on natural forest. And it can really help to support the UDR regulations. So just to conclude this work, of course, try to answer the question of where we have cocoa across the globe. And it has potential to increase the sustainability for farmers, but also to make the farmers known, because we don't have data. So, but just being able to understand there is cocoa farming happening somewhere, it's really useful. But also we try to cover both typologies of monocrop and agroforestry. And of course, the plan is to have kind of an updated versions after every few years. And hopefully it can be able to support the baseline as a base for UDR. Thank you. That makes the end of my presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Robert. And yeah, questions? We'll have plenty of time for questions.
Yeah, very interesting. But I'm curious why the focus in the model specifically on cacao, but because you say you need the other crops as well to train, but you don't present the results of how it behaves for those other crops. So would a multi-classification model not generally be better to get a better model?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think that's a good question. So just to answer your question, this model originally was trained on multiple classification. So and then fine tuned for two. So combining all other into one. So I mean the final result to be presented for both, but here I just want to emphasize on performance on cocoa. Yeah, but I don't have it here. Yeah. So for this, there are two, but for the original model, so this is a fine-tuned model, it was trained on 23 classes. Yep. No, we use, it's a composite, a yearly composite. So it's a median.
Maybe I use the microphone, sorry.
Yeah.
Could you do multiple years predictions with this data?
Yes, you can do much. Now we are
Like
doing
from 2017 to 2024. Could you do annual prediction maybe?
Yeah, so for example, now we had one project we are trying to test. So for 2024, try to check if there is because this data is trained not only for 1 year. So we have because this like the reference data comes from multiple years. So we include we do kind of like a monitoring, and then we include all the data. So it kind of has that diversity of data.
I see that you use latitude and longitude.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You just use them as a latitude longitude, or you correct for the spherical curvature, the Earth curvature?
No, I don't.
Okay,
So I mean, I
just
try to
latitude
correct
and
for that,
longitude.
but that doesn't do in so much difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
And climate data?
But that was kind of a redundancy. It doesn't add because the aim here was more onto the geography, like specifically. So the climate doesn't, because across the tropics, it can get really confusing. Especially now, you can see, for example, you have some issues, like for example in dry forest. So you can miss that if you just have a certain climate. Yeah. But I think having the reference data, I think that's the most useful.
What the question is, what is like limiting for cocoa plant? Some temperature, right? If you know that, for example, the lowest temperature, in some months, that is too low. I don't know. So you don't have cocoa because it's only tropical plant, right? So it could help with excluding all these areas where this plant, I mean, wouldn't come like in a high mountains or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, in reality, because of the changing in terms, that does not really work. And I mean, I just said, for example, in Ecuador, for example, even now in Cameroon, there is also a lot of shift because of changing of the cultivation system. So I think if you just stick with that, you might miss a lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm done with questions.
Yeah.
Very good presentation. Maybe I missed, but how do you actually capture the agroforestry as cocoa agroforestry as like a cocoa plantation based on the input data you use? Do you have like logic to actually differentiate agroforestry and the cocoa farm, and what kind of information is benefit for capture agroforestry? Because a lot of people from agroforestry domain, they have problem with like be classified as agricultural land or classified as forest. So what is your strategy?
Yeah. So as I said, this is like the network we are producing. So that's basically based on the texture. So on top of this product, we are using like texture based, of course, on Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 to separate between the. So it's a very simple separation between the two, which we are applying on top of this classified product. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have one question. So how your data compares to the data forest partnership? That's kind of the only other data that I know that it's producing some cocoa maps. I think you were actually covering more area, but did you explore that? Because they also produce probability, but so what are kind of the main difference advantages? I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's not so much difference apart from like the coverage. But I think one of the issues which is so for example in West Africa we what we are trying to do is those frontier, like new frontiers for example in West Africa, if you go for example in Liberia, right? In the border with there is a lot of deforestation related to cocoa, like a new cocoa farm being established. That's something which is also like if you look at this data, it's missing. So just trying to go beyond, so like the normal knowledge we have, right? So kind of pushes. That's why like sometimes there's a lot of question. Okay, are you sure there is cocoa here? Because that's something which is like currently happening. And of course, there is a lot of contribution because of changing in price, as you can understand, like cocoa being and people being like really like going on to cocoa, and of course, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Sorry if you have already answered to this, but you said like using Sentinel-1 and 2, but I was wondering, can you actually detect or can you train data to detect understory cocoa trees when, you know, the natural forest or the agri-forest kind of stands? Did you already answer to this? Or I wasn't really sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, thank you. I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, so when I was mentioning the typologies, right, you have these different agroforest systems. So, and that varies based on the intensity. You have some which are very, like you have scattered trees, and you have some which are very dense. So you can't really see what is below ground. So in that case, that's like some serious case. I would like to, we probably miss that a lot, but we try to include. That's why location makes like a very big, that's it's really fostered to include, because these are very specific, especially for old growth cocoa farming's location. That's where you can find this kind of cultivation happening. So only location and trying to restrict so that you cannot overestimate of a natural forest. So that's the tricky part, because you can include it and then you do an overestimation.
So you will need like a secondary data sets from the ground truth. Or,
Yes,
like a
you
secondary-
need really knowledge on that aspect. Yes, so
Okay.
that's why it's kind of an active learning. I didn't explain this thing there.
No,
Yeah.
very interesting. Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. More questions? Okay.
Yeah, I was also curious, you mentioned that one form that you discovered and you said, well, it was established in 2022, something like this, right? Which would be after the date EUDR sets out. So you wouldn't be allowed to import cacao from that form, basically. So is this kind of models also going to be used to establish which forms were already established prior to 2021? Is that an aim?
Did you?
So for EUDR,
Yeah.
if you have deforestation after 2021, that's when it comes into vigor. Then you're
Yeah.
not allowed to import it into Europe, right?
Yeah.
So this kind of work of establishing what was deforested after 2021 is very important. So
Yeah.
is this kind of modeling going to be used for that as well?
Yeah. So if I may answer this, I mean, this kind of data, I mean, it just can be used to support basically, because I think the requirement is mostly the companies need to submit the like polygons data, or point data of the farm locations. But then you need to know, of course, if this location indeed there was deforestation, there was a forest, and if indeed this is the crop, right? So if maybe it's another crop, or if it's cocoa. So this data can really support, okay, there was cocoa, there was deforestation, so that's can support a set of data. But then of course need to go more than this. So this is kind of a support, but you still need probably to have highest resolution data to really prove that point. Yeah.